with a Chance of Meatballs is about a small town that has been eating sardines for a very, very long time.
And Flint wants to be an inventor. He wanted to invent stuff that would help people and help his fellow man.
Blueprints, awesome. Redesigning, virtualizing.
He's invented spray-on shoes. He's invented a thought translator. He's also invented rat birds. Everybody else thinks they're terrible ideas until he creates this magical food machine.
The Flindisniffer.
Flindisniffer.
The Flintsniffer?
Flintsniffer.
And I think that's when things start to get really interesting in the movie.
Hi, I'm Christopher Miller.
And I'm Phil Lord. We're the directors of Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
Robert Altman once said, making a movie is a lot like making a hamburger.
A hamburger that takes 3.5 years to make and 87 minutes to eat. Now, the first ingredient in any burger or movie is meat, raw meat. And in the case of this movie, our raw meat was the book, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. The only thing left to do after that is add characters,
Represented by this ketchup.
and locations. And you're off to a great start.
Who's hungry?
I am.
I'm not.
The book is a fantastic illustrated story about what happens when food falls from the sky.
The machine works.
I loved the book growing up. It was one of my all-time favorite books. I still have it. It's well worn.
I do remember the book. Just the idea of food raining on a town as a kid was kind of like the coolest thing ever and like your dream.
Our take on the book was, let's take this thing that's very whimsical and kind of silly and make it real.
It really works!
We tried to find a look that was really epic in scope, but also was really fun, like cartoons are.
We wanted humans to be a little more cartoony and simple. We wanted them to be able to express emotions very in a realistic way.
Our characters are absolutely driven by the voices that perform them, for sure.
You figured it would induce a molecular phase change of the vapor from the cumulonimbus layer.
Before we even start animating shots, we work and work and work with these characters to see how would they walk and how would they deliver this line. And we try different voices on them to see what fits.
When they recorded my voice, they also recorded me, and so any gestures that I did, they incorporated into my character, and that's been a really amazing process to see.
So she looks at me, she's like, oh, that's molecular structure, like sort of like that. I think in the head and in the eyes, so it's more of a
I have to convey a lot of emotion just through your voice.
And then I brought it here and pressed it into a gigantic custom car plastic Tupperware mold I made.
And seeing how the animators, what they do with it is, was great. It's the magic of animation.
There's an overall style for the movie. It's kind of cartoony in the way the characters are modeled and animated. The buildings kind of needs to fit in that world. They're geometric. They're not perfect. Like everything's a little off kilter, a little misshapen. It's just kind of a fun effect.
The town is one of the largest sets that they've ever built in CG. It's a huge town. You can zoom through any part of it.
This movie starts out in a town. It's sort of stuck in a rut. It's very desaturated, almost black and white in some places.
The Flindisniffer starts to work. And once that happens, suddenly Swallow Falls becomes new and it's shiny and it's all food themed. So you have like the Marshmallow Warehouse and you have the Bib Store and you have the mouth funnels so that you can catch the food in your mouth as it rains from the sky. And there's nacho cheese hot springs for people to hang out in. So when the food arrives, it's this big, beautiful color that comes into the world and it brightens up the whole movie.
So you can see in our burger/movie, or ham-boovie, we've got a lot of cool ingredients.
But we're still missing one very special ingredient, food.
1, 2, 3.
It's fun food. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's the highest calorie intake of any movie ever made.
We also wanted the food to be edible and appealing and look like you want to like reach out and grab it and eat it.
One thing about the food is it had to look appetizing. We wanted the audience to want to eat that. I want them to go, oh, I want that, I want to eat that.
When burgers arrive in the town of Swallow Falls, it's a big deal. So we had to figure out the right burger. We sweat the details.
The first step with the burgers was to split the burger out into the major pieces like the bun and the meat patty and the lettuce, but the individual pieces will flex and move in a realistic way.
We even dictated like how much the hamburgers would stay together. So some of them would stay together a little bit more, and some of them could fall apart into their various pieces like they might in real life.
In the computer, we took this model of a hamburger and we would rig it where we'd make every sort of layer of the burger its own separate little dynamic object. When that burger hits the ground, it can break apart, it might stay together, it might splat some ketchup or mustard on the ground and that sort of a thing. So we have sort of different systems for different levels of detail.
The book has a scene where the sun sets past a giant Jell-O mold, and we thought, oh, that'll be beautiful to see in CG. So it ends up being that Flint really wants to impress Sam.
I was wondering if you would like to go on a day activity with me tomorrow.
And so he builds this giant Jell-O mold palace for her.
The Jell-O mold is kind of a crazy one. It was very, it's an interesting one from an animation standpoint because it's what happens first. Do you animate the characters or do you animate the environment?
We brought some Jell-O just to shoot it, and we dropped some things on it to see what that would look like. In our movie, the two characters jump into this giant Jell-O mold, and they're bouncing around, and they're like punching through it, and they're ripping it apart, and that sort of thing.
It's always wobbling and jiggling, and the light's always changing, and the light has to bounce around like however many thousand times. It's very difficult to do, but they did it, and it looks awesome.
The giant foods hitting the buildings is one of the high moments in the movie for the effects team.
Every time the meatball plows through a house, somebody has to go through and break that house up and make it explode at the right time. That sort of a level of destruction to do every single piece in the computer is a lot of work. We've got to choreograph every single piece, every dust particle, to make it look like a natural destruction.
We start out with a computer model that's just a shell of this thing that's painted to look like a building. We actually have to take that building, make it out of drywall or bricks, and stick 2x4s behind the drywall, and then put the inner drywall and all the different plumbing and wires and electricity, all that stuff that makes a building look like a building. We have to model all that stuff in there.
And then when the giant burger hits the building, there's a tool set for the buildings that we can shatter them, break them up onto little chunks. It'll knock the roof in and the walls out and send the pieces flying everywhere and get really interesting results.
Everything we did, we just did big. The food is almost 50 different kinds of food. The city is as big a town as we've ever made, and then we redid it 5 times. And the list kind of goes on that way.
So to sum up, we've got our characters, our setting, this cheese is the plot.
The lettuce is the music. What are these tomatoes?
I don't know, sound? Oh! And most importantly of all, there's lots and lots of talented, highly trained individuals represented by these sesame seeds.
A fully animated, computer-generated movie, it's an amazing amount of work, and it's like an army of people. It's pretty incredible what it takes to get it done.
Chris and Phil are probably 2 of the funniest people I've ever met. Actually, one of the most exciting things to watch now is when an animator will present something that Chris and Phil did not anticipate. I mean, there's nothing more powerful than watching Chris and Phil be speechless.
You know what? Let's just fast forward now.
This guy.
No.
Because that's a hard thing to accomplish.
Part of our philosophy is to try and push things one step further than you would expect. And so we have an amazing team of animators, and they bring so much hilarious stuff to the table.
I think what's been important to them always is to not go down any path that's been traveled before. So if they can find a fresh take on something, that's the direction that they're going to go. So it is a little bit like going to silly school.
So there you have it. All that's left to do is put all these ingredients in the microwave for as long as it takes most people to get through college. And what do you get? Delicious movie!